Hi everyone, I think we can come forward and have a little closure dialogue. Uh, yeah, if you can move here. Great, thank you. Since it's a very less number of people, we can actually do an introduction. So my name is Lalit, and I head security for AWS. Along with me, we'll have Zeron and Cloudonix as well. They'll talk about themselves, but other people I want to know about the room. Looks like very less number of people, but like what do you do? Awesome. So you are responsible for operating. Okay, awesome. So this dialogue is designed for builder operator as well as for founders, because as we know, this conference is more about cybersecurity founders and how they can leverage various mechanisms. Okay, and so we'll start with this. The typical, do we have the slides? So how do we scale security keeping in mind the operators? How operator will use security, and just a typical dialogue that happens is probably every startup founder will come and say, hey, our priority is building fast, shipping it, and we have open API. So it will work with your tooling, but that open API, who's going to integrate it, how it's being managed, what is the cost of teaching my people how to use the tools in conjunction with all other tools that I have. And startup starts with some security product. They don't have a platform to start with, so of course it need to coexist with existing security tooling. So how that really works out is operator typically look at the cost of implementation, what are my integration complexities, while you say that there is an open API, and how do I train my people on this? How do I maintain this? Is it a SaaS offering? Are you going to deploy it in my cloud account? And how I'm going to get updates? How I get my people updated on your updates? So these are bigger questions that are there. But then, while we do so, how to build in a scalable fashion. So we also have two founders with us who are going to talk from a perspective of how they can collaborate with AWS. One, to solve the exact challenge customer faces. That means since we as AWS, as a cloud service provider, we meet thousands of customers, and we are probably more closer to the actual pain point in operations, what's happening, because we have a day-to-day conversation with them. Now, how do we get this information to the founders who are building, the builders, and how they can integrate this information? That's one part of it. The second part of it is how they can leverage the ecosystem and grow the startup as well. Any founder here in the room? Apart from you two, we don't have founders. Okay, so we do it. We are going to do it in a different way. We decided to do this as for founders, but we don't have much founders. Not any founder in the room except you two. So let me keep it very simple. So from Acreon. So we'll keep it a dialogue. We'll keep it a simple dialogue, and we want to understand from you how this will work. We'll change. We're not going to leverage much of the slides. So very simply, I'll start with Amol. Probably you're sitting in the front, so help me on this. What you're expecting out of this session first, and what are your security challenges?
AWS as a partner to build the product and also to use AWS Marketplace for the sales motion as well.
Okay, so you're a founder yourself, and you're building a product.
Not a founder, I work with the founders.
You work with the founders, okay. So I'll come to you, Sujoy. What you suggest? You've been a founder. You've been building product.
Yeah.
So how would you help? So I'm going to play the role of facilitator. I would let other people talk and jump in when I required.
Yeah. So I am a founder of a startup called Cloudonix. We are around in the market for now 4 years. Our journey started with Y Combinator, so typical raising some money, right? Solving a problem. The first few customers come through Hustle, but the challenge was always the GTM. And many founders, especially in the cyberspace, would have a good technical background. They would know what to build, how to build, but the question comes that after you get these first handful of customers, how do you scale? What should be your GTM? Should you build your sales engine? Should you figure out partnerships, channel motion as it is called? For us, that was also a big question. And coming from tech background, running a sales engine was not easy for us, or we didn't know exactly how to go through that route. That's where, as a builder, what was very clear to us was we would work with the construct of AWS Marketplace. Like Amazon.com, I'm sure we all use it. We have at least heard about it. And the concept is largely simple to understand, right? There is somebody who wants to buy some product, and then there's somebody else who says that, okay, I can sell this to you, give it to you. So something similar, Amazon.com replicated, or AWS replicated from Amazon.com, the parent company, saying that, all right, why don't we also build a similar marketplace where there are these builders who want to find their like market users who can buy, and then there are these so-called buyers. So there are sellers, builders like us who would want to sell, and then there are buyers. They get sort of a catalog of the software, they like it, they can sort of test it out, and then further that entire motion goes from there, sort of the buying motion. So that was, it's not a new construct, but the way we explored it, we figured out that without even a sales person, you can still do the selling part, right? So that is something, you know, we could, we call it exploit it, if I may. I'll keep it short, and if, again, questions, happy to take in the between, anywhere in between. So this is just one slide about us, what we do. So we do, we'll call ourselves a CNAP platform. We do code to cloud security. So this is a security buyer, according to me. You go to, and there's nothing wrong with this. Security is a trust deficit world. The person who is securing, and sir, I heard you do security for some bank, you know, some financial FSI. I'm sure you are bombarded with like vendors day in and day out saying like trying to sell to you, through you, and your agenda is really to focus on your job, right? Making sure that your assets, your organization is secure, right? You may be a very nice person, but to me, you look like this. If you don't like Rohit Shetty, we can change that thing here. But if Cloudinix were to go directly to a buyer, it is difficult to sell to them, right? That's where we wanted a partner, right? And there's no better name, you know, in of course, the cloud world than AWS, right? So we said, why don't we work with AWS? It's a very symbiotic relationship. We started to work with AWS, real email, everything mostly here is real. 2022, like 3.5 years ago. I think what I'm trying to highlight through this is if for your GTM, if you are thinking of AWS, Marketplace, the entire ecosystem, it's a giant. It takes an incredibly long time. It's not like you go meet Lalit Kumar or you meet some, you know, another leader in AWS, you know, you do a lunch, coffee with them, and they'll start to sell. In fact, they don't sell your product at all. There's no concept of you telling AWS, hey, sell my product, and they'll sell. That's not how it works. A lot of folks think this is how the relationship is between AWS and the partners, which is completely wrong. Nothing of this sort happens. You know, when you work with any partner for that matter, not just AWS. If you go and talk to any of the MSSPs, any of the other, you know, distributors, Reddington, Crayon, and all, they are not really like going and pitching your product like actively selling kind of thing, right? It's more like this. Uh, so in Y Combinator, within the first 5 minutes, we were told this adage or this thing, and it was like, hey, think about YC as a group of joggers training for a marathon. You stay with the pack. If you fall off, nobody's going to come and pick you up on their shoulders. You just drift away. You are dead for us, right? I think startups and partnerships are like that. You stick with the partners, you invest, and you are with them all along, right? Or you just drift away and it's okay. Like, nobody's going to complain or think about you. Again, this also is slightly generic. I don't think this is just with AWS. And again, for folks who are joining, I'm not really talking about what should be built. We are assuming here that we have already built it or we know what needs to be built. It's about the distribution, right? Because the necessary condition is what needs to be built, but the sufficient condition is how it will get distributed, right? So we are talking more about that. The initial challenge we were facing is not knowing our persona, not knowing which industry, which segment to sell into. And that's a big problem because AWS or any large partner, they'll have this massive sales force. They would be specifically talking about that, hey, I only sell into companies like Cred, JustPay, MoneyView, like these fintechs based in Bangalore who have raised up to Series B, Series C kind of thing. And if you go and talk to them that, hey, I want to sell into a bank, it'd be like, okay, you are not for me, right? So that kind of understanding needs to be there when we work with, in a builder mode and when we are trying to leverage the AWS marketplace. I'll skip some of this. This is very, again, I think this is the same, lot of jargons. Again, AWS, any partners you take, they'll have their own teams, GOIs, they'll have focus on certain markets. They could put out a new initiative and you could get caught into that initiative. So you have to be careful as to know what your metrics you are tracking. So I'll skip this. So one example I can share, and hopefully this gives you that insight. So we did our first marketplace private offer for $65,000 with a US customer. Now, without even signing or meeting with their legal team, no procurement team in place, that grew to around 560 or 540K TCV so far, right? That is, again, the power of marketplace, power of partnerships, because we were going through AWS, we were going through the legal construct of AWS, which is there in marketplace. So the ease of selling is very, very high, right? You're not going through procurement cycles. You're not doing, a lot of paperwork. It's a simple, I like this, I want to buy this, and I want to sell this. Sure, this is the exchange, like, money will exchange, and you are like, all right, let's go ahead and buy it kind of thing. MPPO is a little technical term. This was created actually for some other presentation I did earlier, but it just means that so far we have done more than 100 transactions on marketplace. So 100 customers generated interest in our platform, Cloud Annex, and we sold to 100 customers, simple as that. So we did 100 transactions, which is reasonably a good number for the short span we have been with them. It has generated a lot of leads because now what ends up happening is if we are selling through marketplace, there is an internal interest from AWS because they want to, right now I think they are doing maybe 6 billion to 10 billion revenue through marketplace, and they want to increase it to maybe 30, 40 billion in next 5 to 10 years. So AWS thinks of marketplace as their any other internal service, like how there is a quota for selling EC2s or databases. There is also a quota now for their internal teams to sell marketplace, right? And it works really good for us as ISVs, where we want to find a market, we want to find the buyer. So instead of now me hiring people, we are actually working with AWS Salesforce, and they talk about us to their customers, right? So we get an introduction from an AWS account manager to the end customer, saying that, hey, I was talking to my customer, they have a problem, I remember you guys, you solved that problem, how about you do this? As a matter of fact, in Bangalore, I'm here for 3 days. Yesterday, I was doing something similar. Somebody introduced me, I met the customer, and tomorrow again, I'm gonna do something similar, meeting another fintech giant, because an AWS account manager thought, we are a good fit for them, we can solve their problem. This, I think, one of my last slides. Here's how I look at it, right? Like if you get a US visa, and this is an assumption I don't have any data, but if you get a US visa and now you apply for Singapore, I bet they may not do as good a vetting out on you. I think so, because they see, this guy already has a US visa. They have already, must have done their background check and all that stuff on this guy. It's also a very social construct, right? If I say I have 10 top banks in India using my product, the 11th bank will be like, 10 banks use kar rahi hai, right? I mean, it should be okay, right? I can safely take a bet on them types, right? So our ulterior motive was not to just work with AWS, not alone AWS, right? But the other partners, the other SI partners, companies like Infosys, companies like Reddington, companies who can take us to the global scale, right? But because we showed that connection with AWS, that marketplace, we showed that we can do this, and we have been doing this, that network effect started to happen now, where Infosys is telling us, and not Infosys, I'm just taking a random name, that, hey, we heard about you from AWS leadership. Looks like you are doing a great job. Why don't we work together, right? And that's ultimately what we were looking for. So one very clear caveat is AWS will not sell your software. They'll not generate leads for you. You get listed on marketplace, you should not expect that now you will be getting a lot of leads left and right. Nothing of that sort happens. It's like this saying in Hindi, jute ghisna, right? You have to go every day, every week, meet people, sit down with them, understand what their customers' pain problem are. It's a really, really customer-obsessed company. And if you can convince the AWS guy that, hey, I can really solve your customer's problem, then you can expect that introduction or some motion, GTM, sales motion around it, right? So I look at them as a library. I have a problem, I'm stuck, I'm not able to open a particular segment, I'm not able to go to a particular geography. I'll go to somebody in AWS and say, hey, how can I leverage your engine and go into Singapore? What would that look like? Or I want to go to Middle East, what would that look like? What should I be doing? Which person should I be working? What particular campaign can I run, right? All that stuff. My last slide. I think some of the things, again, are very jargony, but while AWS may say that, hey, come get listed on marketplace, it's not that hunky-dory that you just get listed on marketplace, things are okay. I think it's just the first step. But that hard work, that time you have to put in is real. But for sure, if you do that, my sales team is like minimum people you can have. In fact, these guys are more now partner people. So they work with AWS folks more than the end customer. We don't do direct like sales call or like cold calls kind of thing, right? If I were to work with a particular customer, I would rather talk to first in AWS or a partner around AWS who are there, and then try to build a strategy. How do we approach these set of customers, right? So you need to put this strategy in place, and you need to hire people, dedicated people who would work with the AWS ecosystem, and show up every day, like stay with the pack. If you drift off, you would be lost, right? So that's all. Any questions, any feedback I can
I
get?
just want to add, if you can go back to the slide.
Sure.
See, there are 3,000 plus security vendors if we look at. And the challenge with founders is to find the right category. There are 16 kind of fixed category, and there are some other categories which are fleeting categories. So how to find the right product? That's one problem for the founder side. How to compete in that market? It's a crowded market. Second problem is, the major problem is on a buyer side, on an operator side. Which product I'm going to choose? Now I have so many products. How do I arrive at the product? How do I do my product discovery? The first step people do is, oh, I know this person. Let me talk to them. Oh, I know maybe from marketing, Palo Alto's of the world, Wiz of the world are the established player. But from a startup perspective, they are not discovered yet, probably at times, for a large base of customers. So we help the organizations to discover the startups which are showing up every day, which are building product which are solving the most recent problem, as well as super cost effective compared to established player. So all these factor comes in, and we help to do that. But we are not limited to that. What does this partnership mean? While so Joy talked about that it could be we get on marketplace and AWS branding with us. But what we are doing behind the scene, we are also validating the products. So we are also including the engineering effort of the product as well. Sanket, I want to, you want to comment on this, that how you have considered engineering with AWS and how you have built a product. So we'll just take one example with Sanket. You may also want to use a couple of slides, but yeah.
Hi everyone, very good morning. Still 10 minutes for 12, so good morning. But before I start off with it, I'll just start off with something like why did I start at all, right? And I'll do that because since it's a workshop, right? So I'll try to relate something before I come on to what's the engineering stack that we used and how it helped us, with an example which everyone is going to relate here. Okay. Sir, what's your name? Amol. Right. You are natively from? Maharashtra. Fine. So your native language is Marathi? Fine. Can you say something in Marathi?
मी काही पण बोलू शकतो.
Say again.
मी काही पण बोलू शकतो.
अब क्या बोले? Is that what?
So, how many of you understood what he said? Okay. Let's go a bit forward. What's your name, sir?
Lal,
Okay. Your native place?
Kerala,
Can you? So the native language is
Malayalam.
Malayalam.
Yeah.
Can you say something in Malayalam?
Sugamano,
How many of you understood what he said? Okay. You are from Kerala, but you know Malayalam. You understand a little. Okay. I started my journey with this frustration, but not with this language, but with the language produced by security tools. Now, can you say whatever you said in Marathi in English?
What do I say? This partner.
So he said, what do I say? Now everyone understands this? Can you say again in English what you said in?
how are you?
He said, how are you? I'm fine. Okay. So that was the initial challenge that we faced while trying to communicate cyber risks to leaders, right? And this started as a personal frustration. So, by the way, can anyone guess what my profession is by looking at my attire? Hacker. Okay, so I have been into hacking for the last 15 years. I started when I was a school kid. I hacked 86 organizations in a single day, reported to all of them. Fun fact, none of them replied. And I was a bit astonished with that, right? So I kind of thought what would have been the reason. And then I reached out to these guys and understood none of them understands the language of security. But when I put the same thing in terms of money, because business leaders understand money, and I said, this is the amount of risk that you would have I had everyone on ears. Now, I understood what the end goal I want to do, but to do that actually was an engineering challenge. It was an initiative started by AWS with another SIM tool 3 years back, around 2017, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, that's almost 8 years back now, my bad. So since I started, that time it was 3 years back, and the technology was called OCSF, Open Cybersecurity Schema Framework. Right. Now, the OEMs were not willing to use that because that could have taken a piece of their business logic maybe. I don't know what the reason was, but that kind of a thing that was available was a, what do I say, a gem that needed to be carved out. Okay. And we started building on top of that. By the way, the time when I met Lalit, we already started working on that, and that was the first thing, wo hota hai na ki click moment. That was the click moment between me and Lalit. So, so at Zeron, we quantify cyber risks to act with clarity, right? We do not talk in terms of CVs, EPSs, and all of it. We talk in terms of numbers. This is the amount of monetary risk that you have. This is the amount of money that you should invest in area A, B, C, D, E. And this is by how much your risk is going to get reduced. So if I look at this problem, this theory, I call it the dark side of the moon. Now, the dark side of the moon is a very interesting theory. No one knows what's there on the dark side of the moon, right? So if you look here, each of the dot represents a security solution that's installed in an organization. And there's plenty. On an average, organizations use 18 different security solutions. And the dashes that you see are the data produced by these security solutions. And as you can see, these are not working in sync or not communicating with each other. It's in silos. Right? So like a lot of people were talking to each other, but none of them were understanding what each of them are speaking. And we cannot get the overall story. So what we did was, we took the design decision based on OCSF, right? And we were building it on AWS because of a lot of reasons. So my co-founder Santosh, he says that his biggest joy with AWS is Graviton. Okay, so that's his biggest joy. So fundamentally, when we were doing with OCSF, it actually helped us map with different controls and all of the things. So how this goes, the engineering thing is, we have siloed data. Now the data ingestion comes in. Now from this classification layer to the risk inside is managed by OCSF. Between this, a lot of different thing happens. There's a control mapping that happens between the classification and the normalization layer, which typically means the data is coming from an XDR firewall, DLP, and all of it, right? We classify it first from where the data is coming, then normalize it so that the data makes sense. Someone might be writing hostname as HOST_NAME. Someone might be writing in small case hostname, but both mean the same. So I'll just give you an example. There was a particular customer that we were working with, and we run the assessment. The total number of assets in his organization came as 4,667. He said it's not possible. The reason is, my inventory says there are 2,500 assets. So we showed them the actual data that was coming in. And one of their firewalls, each of the nodes that were created with an IP was actually a host that was getting created and just not an IP. So in totality, he had 4,667 assets, meaning by around 2,000 shadow ITs he had. And that wouldn't have been possible without this engineering layer. Now, the control mapping happens, which essentially helps us quantify risks. And there is an AI fabric layer. Now, this AI fabric layer was built on top of OCSF. So we were building connectors, right? So now we support 1,353 connectors. But it was not possible for us to make each and every connector every time. So we made an SLM, which is a small language model. Because if I try to infuse an LLM in this, It becomes too complex and it might hallucinate. So we trained the SLM with OCSF. Now what happens is whenever now we get a data from a different tool, it automatically creates that converter and normalizes the data. So we don't have to build the connectors again and again. Now while we were doing this, there was a bit of interest in the market that we were seeing, and there was a bit of ambiguity that was there, right? And we kind of found out that we can solve this particular problem. And that particular problem was cyber insurance. So I'll talk about that a bit, but before that, with whatever engineering I showed, we have a platform which is an agentic AI-powered SaaS platform, which helps organizations understand the risks and acts as a single point of truth for cyber risk management, so that they can communicate risk in the organization in a very easy way so that everyone understands it, and the proactive nature towards mitigating risk becomes better. So the point that I was talking about, take for example, there is an insurance company, and they are going to underwrite an insurance for a particular customer that they have. How do they decide what is the coverage that the organization should be taking? It's next to impossible to do by a human view. And a lot of human bias would come into the play. And while we were building this, we connected with Lalit. We brainstormed a lot. So even the best part that I have loved working with the AWS team is they become a part of the team which is building the product. So we get a lot of inputs from them. And that essentially helped us build a platform which is now being used by one of India's leading cyber insurance underwriters, right, to underwrite cyber insurances. So a bigger news is on the way. So we are not going to talk about that, but we're going to talk about what we have built. And that's the Insure Pulse platform. It's built on AWS. It's an AI-powered platform for cyber insurance underwriters. It essentially helps them to analyze what is the risk that is there on their books as well, right? So making a business sense out of it. So with that, I'll stop here and give it to the hall or the people who are here. If you have any questions, so the longer vision that we have is to be the market leaders for quantification, right? So what we are doing right now is like our deep research, and whatever we do is on quantification, and rest on everything that's available, we kind of try to integrate, right? So in the longer run, what we would want is, supposingly for KYC today, you would connect to the KYC provider APIs, right? In the longer run, anyone who wants to do quantification would be relying on our APIs to quantify the metrics that they are showing on their platform. So it might be a Cloudinix, it might be a CrowdStrike, it might be a Wiz, it might be a Palo Alto. Anyone, if they want to quantify the risks that they are showing on their platform, they use our APIs.
What's our vision? What's AWS vision in this case is, see, our vision is super simple, that we operate in a space where we have builders, founders, and operators. And we understand that we, as AWS, could not solve all security challenges. So you want all the builders to come and leverage AWS as well, and build on top of AWS, and solve those security challenges. And we facilitate conversations that, hey, these are the situations, or these are the security problems which are already solved, which we are providing. We are baking our platform. But these are the other security challenges which are probably not solved. And these are the other partners, founders you can look at. So we solve that larger problem of shared digital fate, because we all are connected in a way. So that's our objective with this. We thought we'll also do an offer for all the founders to do an AI assessment, but I think we'll change this a little bit. The very less number of people, so you can directly reach out to me, and we find other ways to reach out to more founders for this. But I want to just conclude this with a message that we're here to solve problems at scale and at speed. And that's where we bake in security control in AWS platform, as well as we actively invest into startups, especially cybersecurity startups, to build solution and solve larger problem we could not solve alone. So that's where we are. Any kind of a questions, we are here, happy to address, be it related to your operation or building your startup. So I'll not take more time. I know there's less number of people and then there may be some questions. So yeah, thank you. Any questions?
Any system output that gets generated, there are a lot of people who are trying to leverage AI for that, and that becomes, I would say, transactionally heavy, because if you look at legacy cybersecurity companies, they were able to play around with petabyte scale data, but if you try to integrate that with LLMs or SLMs, cost rationalization becomes a big problem in today's world. So what's your view on that, and how can AWS help us?
Okay. So you come from operator side?
So I work for a consulting firm.
A consulting firm? PwC, okay.
Manage SOC business.
Sure. Okay. So, and it's the challenge which everyone trying to solve right now. For this, there are a couple of things. What AWS is doing, and first, we provide our own advisory services. I'm not saying consulting services, we also have that, but advisory services on how to build safely leveraging AI component, or how your AI application can be built. That's one part of it. Second is you also want security from AI-based attack, but that's a separate problem. But let's focus on that an organization is building AI application and they want to operate that safely. So we have developed something called a responsible AI framework. So, and along with this, we collaborate with our partners, like Saro Consulting is here, PwC is here. So we collaborate with our partners to scale these frameworks. So we take our lessons that we have learned by building AI within AWS, and we also benchmark against the industry standard. Like we also help organization to get ISO 42001. So we help in that direction. Plus, if you look at the startups here, for example, Encrypt AI, for example, Repello AI. So they are doing red teaming for AI application. So we also integrate that kind of ecosystem within AWS. And so the major problem with the customer remains is discoverability.
And costs.
Cost as well. Cost as well. And the interesting example in the cost is that all incumbent security player would also like to have something on AI. Sometimes they succeed very well in it, but most of the time, don't quote me on this, but most of the time, they fall short of it because their primary solution was not built for AI. So something like new age startup like Encrypt AI, Repello, they have to come and solve certain other problem. So that's where, sorry, you were saying something.
I agree with you on the retrofitment of AI on legacy platforms, and that's the pain point of them, the rise in costs. I just wanted to understand how are new age startups trying to address the cost of working with LLMs and SLMs at that scale of data?
Part of this is engineering. Let me also give 2 examples here specifically. Before this, we were doing a panel, and one of the founder was CISO, Sandesh. What they've done is they've looked at an opportunity when generative AI become mainstream, and they build a threat modeling capability on top of it. So they are solving a problem in AppSec category with generative AI based threat modeling. Now, if you look before that, threat modeling is a manual exercise, usually take 5 to 7 days. Somebody has to write a big report and then communicate that within the organization. With the generative AI, what they have achieved is they have created integration in the code pipeline, and it can take your InfoSec policies, standards like OWASP, SEBI guidelines, RBI, UAI Act, all of those, and combine information and give it to you in 10 minutes. So the speed at which it's solved, plus the effort required. Now consider this, how many organizations really do threat modeling and have resources who are trained in this? So they solve that gap, the cost drastically comes down. That's one example. Second is what Sanket was talking about is leveraging OCSF. At the core of an organization is of course the vision, but what are the right decisions being taken? So they have taken a decision that OCSF is an open source format. It's an open source, it's an open cybersecurity schema framework. That means all the organization, major organization in cybersecurity have contributed to it. That how our log output look like and what you should be looking for in it. Because they have their patterns for years, let's say CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Zscaler, their patterns are that in their log what people really look for. So what they've done is they've done a smart decision that, hey, rather than we build our own format or trying to figure out other things, we use this where people have agreed on. One, and it's cost sensitive. It drive down cost because it writes in a Parquet format. It's a columnar format. So what people probably be writing in a JSON format in a terabyte, it will reduce to 1 GB. Now, if I can reduce my internal cost structure, then of course I can pass on to the customer.
So intelligent problems, like the apps example that you talked about, things like AI-generated hypothesis testing in a SOC environment is an area which is not deterministic in nature. That requires AI to run in magnanimous loops, for example, in 24/7 to understand the security threats. So those are the kind of optimizations that the industry will need to solve if they're interacting with this scale of data, with whatever outputs are coming today. So that's what I was wondering and wanted to ask them, if they have insights around this.
The moment you say that, you're saying that there's a large amount of data that need to be processed. And we always have that challenge because if you don't have the context, then it becomes a problem. I'll give you another example of advancement in this. Wiz have done this. What Wiz have done is they have like secret detection in a code. The simple solution, I write a Python script and I detect a pattern with my regex. But my success ratio is like 50% to 60% ratio. Then I enhance that code and make it work to like 70%. The other aspect is if I can build or I can use a large language model which understand, but that's cost effective. That's not cost effective. That's cost prohibitive. So now what they've done is they've written a small language model. And what Sanket was talking about is what they have done is they've also purpose built a small language model. So if I throw large amount of data with a technology like large language model, we are not going to get a good result in terms of cost, because what's prohibiting here is cost. So it needs to be contextualized because it's highly contextualized, and then it's a purpose-built solution. So I think, and that's why you see so much happening on AI SOC. Yeah, so that's what I stick to, that contextualize it and make it a purpose-built. And that's where the formula for success for a startup also lies. Yeah. All right, with this, we'll conclude. Thank you so much for staying back. Thank you.